Welcome, everyone, to episode 12 of the Credit You Deserve podcast. I'm David Murphy, president at Marshfield Medical Center Credit Union, and today we are on the road for our first ever road trip podcast episode, and I am delighted to be joined here with Dr. Jill Dillon from the Marshfield Clinic here in Wisconsin Rapids. I'm going to let her do her introduction, but today we're going to talk about the Central Wisconsin Gift of Life program that she is a founder of. And so with that, I will turn over to you, Dr. Dillon, and let you introduce yourself, if you would, please.
Sure. I'm Jill Dillon, and I'm an optometrist here at Marshfield Clinic in Wisconsin Rapids. Been with the clinic for about 23 and a half years, so kind of a veteran, I guess. In 2011, I became a living kidney donor, and because of that, out of that, we established Central Wisconsin Gift of Life, which is what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, so obviously, like, being a donor is super important, and you have personal experience with it, so you know it even better than I do. But if you want to start, if you wouldn't mind, just what is the backstory with the Central Wisconsin Gift of Life? How did you guys form, or what steps led to the creation of the organization?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my donor story is a long story, so we won't get too much into that. We'll just do the very brief synopsis of that. But my donor story actually started out right here in this building at Marshfield Clinic. I was actually speaking with a patient of mine, and his name was Lonnie, and Lonnie had told me that he was going to need a kidney transplant. And I just overwhelmingly heard a voice that said, "Tell him you'll give him one of yours." And that started my journey, actually. And through a series of events that I was going to be a donor for Lonnie, he had a lot of health issues. And so it kind of went back and forth. We had started at one hospital, ended up at the University of Wisconsin Hospital. We were told we could be I could be a donor for him. And then a couple weeks before the surgery, we were denied that ability. Man. And he was told he would never receive a kidney transplant, actually. And that's when we switched over to the University of Wisconsin. And they actually were able to approve Lonnie to get a kidney transplant, which was fantastic. But they found out that I wasn't as good of a match as what they thought that we might have been.
Okay.
And so through that series, Lonnie actually was able to get a kidney from a deceased donor. And so in January of 2011, he actually had his kidney transplant, and he's doing very, very well at this point. So that was great. But that kind of left me at a point where I didn't really know what I was going to do. You know, who was I going to donate to? I had been through this whole process. I'd learned a whole bunch about kidney donation and about donation in general, and I knew it was something I wanted to do, but I didn't have a recipient anymore. And at that time, the swap program was kind of coming to be, and nowadays there's all kinds of great ways that you can donate your kidney. You can donate directly to somebody. You can donate to somebody else, and then their donor that they maybe had lined up that maybe wasn't a good match can donate over to your intended recipient. There's all kinds of great ways to do this. There's voucher programs and all kinds of cool ways out there that could be a whole nother podcast. But
sure.
Because of that and all of that really kind of coming to be at that time, they had talked to me about different options at the University of Wisconsin, and I had taken several months to kind of try to figure out what we were going to do and what I was going to do and wait to see if Lonnie was doing well, and he was. And so I was working one day, again here, and one of the gals that worked for me at the time, her name was Laura. She and I kind of got to talking about what my plans were, and I told her I wasn't sure, and she got kind of a funny grin on her face, and she said, "I actually have a friend from high school who's looking for a kidney. Her name's Sarah, and she works for Security Health Plan," which is, of course, an affiliate here of Marshfield Clinic.
Right.
And I said, "Well, give me your name. Let's give me your information. Let's get this going." And so we met via Facebook. We met online via Facebook. Hadn't met in person yet. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you a kidney." And she said, "What's really what is going on here?" And so we had the University of Wisconsin check our blood. They had blood samples for both of us, and they told us it would be about 2 weeks for them to call us back, and 3 days later they called back and said, "You're such a fantastic match. The lab said take you to surgery."
Wow.
And so on July 21st of 2011, we had surgery, and I donated my kidney to Sarah. And there was some complications for her afterwards, but fortunately UW took care of all that. And when we came out of everything on the other side, we looked at each other, and Sarah's cousin Kathy Gerke, the three of us together looked at each other and said, hey, we gotta talk about this. Like, there needs to be more awareness. We were suddenly aware of the fact that a lot of people didn't know how easy it was, quote unquote, easy it was to be a donor, and how much it's needed. Over 100,000 people in the United States right now need organs of some kind, and around 80-some thousand of those need kidneys. And we can live with one kidney. So the question was, why aren't more people doing this? It changed my life so tremendously for the better that I couldn't imagine why somebody wouldn't want to do this. And so we said, and Sarah knew the recipient side of things. She knew what it was like to wait and to have to, ask people to be a donor, to have to seek out a donor. She knew what that was like. And so she said, we really need to get the information out there. And at that time, there was a group up in Wausau, and they were called North Central Wisconsin Donate Life. And they don't meet much anymore, but we knew of them through some different folks we had talked to. And so we got in contact with them. And they were doing a large event called a scavenger hunt. And so we went up there and we did the scavenger hunt, and we had an absolute blast. And we did that for a couple of years. And that's when we really said, okay, we need to do this in our own area here. Sarah lives over in the Stratford, Auburndale area, and me being here in Wisconsin Rapids, we said we really need to start something like that. And so we got a hold of the University of Wisconsin Organ and Tissue Donation, and they said, you bet, we're happy to help you start a group, and let's get it going. So we kind of put out a call to people that we knew and said, who's interested in this? UW sent up a guy by the name of Trey Schwab and said, here's a liaison for you. He'll help you out. He'll get you started. And out of that, Central Wisconsin Gift of Life was born.
Wow, that's really cool. What a great story. And honestly, until you're faced with that situation or you have a conversation with someone who's finding themselves in need for an organ, I will say just like naively, I don't know half of the stuff that you just mentioned right now. And I can imagine that, for someone who needs an organ, that there's a feeling of, okay, well, where do I turn? So it's great to have an organization like this to have resources first and foremost, but then also be able to make those connections.
Right.
But I imagine like before the formation of this group, and I know you mentioned the one that was in the Wausau area, but going through your own personal journey with this, it was challenging, I imagine. The internet's like in our pockets nowadays, where it was starting to get that way back then, but I'm sure it was kind of like, okay, well, how do you actually get started with this journey, and how do you get the awareness out there now that you've actually gone through it?
Right, absolutely. And that was the biggest thing, is that, I didn't know anybody that had donated a kidney. I didn't know of any, I was vaguely aware, and I'm in the medical community, and I was vaguely aware of that, but I didn't really know, what I didn't know. I mean, I couldn't imagine now what I didn't know back then. Now it seems silly looking back on it, how little I really knew, and I said, sign me up. But, it really, we have found out how much the need for information is out there. And through folks such as the University of Wisconsin Organ and Tissue Donation and some of the other organ procurement organizations, really the awareness has become so much better than it was 10, 12 years ago, and there's still so far to go, and the number of people that I've met that are out there that are doing just amazing amounts of work for this type of awareness is tremendous. I mean, in and of themselves, it's just tremendous, and yet it's still just not enough. We still need to continue to get the awareness out, which is why organizations such as yours that reach out and say, can we do a podcast? You bet we can. Absolutely. We're happy to talk about it. And sometimes I have kidney donors who say, well, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, because it sounds like you're bragging about your donation. But I said, talk about it. Like, shout it, go up on top of your roof and shout about it. I mean, that's how much we need this information to be out there so we can knock down that list. Now, when I started this, that number that I talked about from the beginning, that over 100,000, was more like 130-some thousand.
Wow.
And so now we're just over 100,000 in the United States. That's still just a tremendous number, but it's gone down by 30,000 or so, strictly because of the awareness that's out there and the number of organizations that are out there finding new and creative ways for people to be able to donate their kidneys. Yeah, or just donate organs in general. I mean, that's the other whole side of ours, is not just the living side of it, obviously the living kidney donor side of it, but just the sign up so that after you pass away, hopefully. What a lot of people aren't aware of is that only about 3% or 2 to 3% of people die in a manner in which we can actually take your organs after.
Really?
And so that's why it's so important for everybody to sign up, because it's such a small number of people that can actually be donors after they pass away of organs. Tissues are a different story, but of organs, because the body does have to stay vital, or the oxygen has to stay to the organs. So
that's astonishing. I guess I never really thought about it, because I mean, I got my driver's license now. It's been like 20 some years, but they always ask if you want that on there.
Absolutely.
But you don't think that. Well, I always thought, okay, well, yes, I said yes. So therefore, like, I'm good to go. But yeah, I suppose depending on when you pass and everything.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's one area. The Department of Motor Vehicles here in Wisconsin has been just a tremendous ally for organ and tissue donation. They've been just fantastic. And Donate Life Wisconsin works real closely with them to try to make sure that they're always getting that information out there for folks. And the other thing that actually a lot of people aren't aware of is that driver's education students actually have to have 30 minutes of education regarding organ and tissue donation in their driver's education now. And so some of us, myself included, go to driver's education classes and speak about the need for organ and tissue donors before they even go to get their license, so that hopefully when they go to check that box, they'll say, oh gosh, I remember learning about this. And that's all part of what was called the Kelly Knockreiner law. Kelly Knockreiner was a 16-year-old who was unfortunately killed in a car accident. And her parents fought very hard to get the governor at the time to sign this into law, so that students, because she did end up being an organ donor, so that students going through the driver's education classes would know the importance of needing to be an organ and tissue donor after they passed away. So due to Kelly and her parents, this was signed into law.
Well, that's great that you're able to get out there and reach these individuals when they're so young, because everyone thinks, oh, I got 70, 80 years before I'm going to pass away, but things happen, unfortunately.
They do, yes, unfortunately they do. And we know that has increased the number of people signing up to be organ and tissue donors. Which, by the way, state of Wisconsin is actually very high for the level of number of people who are signed up to be organ and tissue donors.
That's awesome.
Wisconsin's actually a very good state that way. I think we're in the 60 some percent at this point. And some states are down there in the 20s and 30s. So Midwest Nice is a real thing.
There you go, right? Well, good job on all the success and all the work that you're doing there. You did mention the Wisconsin Donate Life program. How is the Central Wisconsin Gift of Life program either connected, or how do you guys affiliate with them?
Sure, absolutely. Donate Life Wisconsin, we definitely work with them. We work, I would say, maybe more alongside them than directly with them, because we do a lot of our direct work with the University of Wisconsin OTD, which is one of the organ procurement organizations in Wisconsin, one of the two in Wisconsin that actually works to with folks when they're donors and with donor families. And so we work very closely with UW-OTD, but alongside of Donate Life Wisconsin doing the work that they're doing as well. I personally do some things with Donate Life Wisconsin, but as far as our organization itself, I would say we work alongside of them more than we work directly with them. But the University of Wisconsin doing very similar work. In fact, a lot of their personnel kind of crossover. Some of them serve on the Donate Life Wisconsin board. And so we do definitely intermingle. All of our groups do very much intermingle.
But just to make sure that we're clear with this, you guys are a separate entity from that group.
We are absolutely a separate entity.
If you do support the statewide initiative, it doesn't necessarily flow through to you guys directly, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep.
So speaking of that, because you guys are a nonprofit, and obviously fundraising is a big piece to be able to support what you're doing with that.
Yes.
How do you guys go about raising funds to support your initiatives?
So our biggest event is our annual scavenger hunt. and this will be our 10th annual scavenger hunt. Technically, it's our 9th scavenger hunt because, of course, we had COVID year in there,
Sure.
2020, that
Yep.
certainly didn't allow us to have a big gathering. But we were able to do it in 2021, had to move the timing of it, but we were able to do it. So it's our 10th annual scavenger hunt, and that is coming up. That is our biggest fundraiser, and that is coming up here on April 13th, Saturday, April 13th. The registration deadline is looming soon, though, on March 30th. What we essentially do is we try to make it a fun day where people know what they're there for, but they're out there having a really great time at the same time. And so what we do is we send out teams of 4 to 6 people, have to fit in one vehicle. That's partially so that people don't split up and try to accomplish the tasks separately,
Sure.
but it's also partially so that you stay together and have fun. So we get teams that come out, and we have the Ridges here in Wisconsin Rapids, Ridges Golf Course and Banquet Center. They have been so incredibly kind to donate their entire center to us for the day, which has been fantastic. That's been a huge, because we've moved around a little bit. We outgrew every facility we were in, and then the Ridges stepped up. And so they have donated their facility to us for the day. So folks come out in the morning over to the Ridges and get registered, and we have raffles that we do, lots of donations that come in for our raffles. We have a silent auction. We do kind of just some fun different things before we leave. And then we send everybody out at once from the Ridges, and it's a crazy chaos, a lot of fun. And we give them a list along with a bag, and they have to go out into our community, and they have to do all kinds of crazy fun tasks and take pictures of it to prove that they did it, or sometimes video, depending on what it is. For instance, we did send them out to go Christmas caroling in April one year, and they did have to take a video of that and post that to our Facebook page. Other fun tasks we've done, we've asked them to do the chicken dance in front of KFC. We've asked them to buy a donut for a police officer, because, that's apparently a stereotype. But we've asked them to buy a donut. We've asked them to take a photo of one of their team members handcuffed in the back of a police car.
Oh, geez.
We've asked them to have somebody lay down on the pavement to draw a chalk outline around them. We've asked them to do all kinds of fun, crazy things.
Sure.
One thing we did here at Marshfield Clinic is we had them come here and we had them draw a picture on the sidewalk of an organ that could be donated after you pass away. And again, just so people can think. We've had them take a picture in the grocery store of a food that would represent an organ that could be donated. So a kidney bean, for instance, or an artichoke heart, or something like that.
Okay.
We've asked them to go into a store and put a pair of underwear over their pants and get a picture of it. I mean, crazy, goofy things, right? Now, having said all of that, the tasks that we ask them to do, there's so many of them that no team could accomplish every task on the list. So people don't have to do anything they're uncomfortable with.
Sure.
So if they feel like, boy, I'm really not going to do that, that's okay. But we just try to make them have a good time.
Yeah.
The other thing we do is have them collect different things around. So we might ask them to bring back a 4-leaf clover, or a takeout menu from a pizza place, or a red beret, or something such as those things that might be a little bit more difficult for them to find.
Sure.
And they get points. So they get points for the tasks that they do, and they also get points for any of the items that they bring back. So the biggest goal, if you want to win, is to try to get as many points as possible, obviously. So the tasks that are maybe a little more difficult, we assign a few more points. But we also assign the important tasks more points. So for instance, we may have in the bag that we give them some of our business cards, and we're going to say, please hand this to somebody and get a picture of you giving it to somebody, because that awareness is really the most important thing that we were having them do. The tasks are fun, they're silly, they're goofy, they're fun, but we also want them to be promoting organ and tissue donation when they're out in the community. And so that might have a 10-point value, which is a high value, because they did that, because they promoted that. Or we may have them ask somebody to show us a picture of their driver's license with the little orange dot on it that shows that they're a donor. And again, because we're spreading that awareness, that's important. And so that task may have a little bit higher point value.
Sure.
So the goal, of course, is to, again, be as high in value as they possibly can. Everybody has a matching T-shirt. On the shirt, we have a different different design every year. This year we're going with the Recycle Yourself. So it's got the recycling logo on it. Kind of a cool shirt. It's a black shirt with a green recycle on it. And it'll say Recycle Yourself, be an organ donor. And then on the back we have all of our sponsors. So all of our sponsors will be listed on the back. So it kind of looks like a race t-shirt would look.
Sure.
So because everybody has the same shirt and they're out in the area, people are out and about. It's a Saturday and they're seeing all these people run around doing all these crazy things. And again, we get all the time, our teams will be asked, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? We ask them to decorate their cars if they want to. We give them a car flag that says Donate Life or Central Wisconsin Gift of Life so that they have some visibility when they're out there in the community. So people are asking them, why are you here?
Yeah.
And we might ask them to do some fun things too, such as pump gas for somebody or carry somebody's groceries to their car. And again, chat with them a little bit about organ donation while you're doing it, or just spread some joy in the community for the day. And so we try to do some real fun things too in that regard, and some things that hopefully the community is excited about and happy about. So and then they do that for 4 hours, and when you say 4 hours, you think, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so much time. Now, I've done the scavenger hunt myself when we did it up in Wausau. I've never, of course, done it here since I'm in charge of it, but I've done the scavenger hunt there. 4 hours goes by like it's 5 minutes.
I can only
I mean,
imagine.
it just flies by.
Yeah.
So they come back to the Ridges after that. We have the raffles and the silent auction that they can take part in. And we have food, of course, because everybody's starving when they get back. And so we do food. This year we're doing walking tacos because it was a huge hit last year. So we do that and gather everybody back together. And then we have a couple of short speakers. We try to bring in different sides of donations. So we've had organ recipients, we've had donor family members of maybe a deceased donor, we've had living donors, we have UW comes and tells us a little bit about what they do. And then the University of Wisconsin is where we give part of our money that we raise that day to. But the other part of where we give our money to, and the other part that's so important, is a place called the Restoring Hope Transplant House. And that's a house that would be similar to, say, a Ronald McDonald type of house, but for transplant patients and for donors. And it is in Middleton, Wisconsin. It's a huge Victorian house. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. They are in the middle or about to start a very, very large renovation so that they can add more space because they're full all the time. And they are the other recipient of our funds that we raise. And so they usually come into and talk about their organization and what they do. And sometimes people will say to us, well, gosh, you're doing all this stuff, but you're giving the money to organizations in Madison and Middleton. Well, that's our closest transplant hospital to where we are right here in central Wisconsin. And the transplant house takes care of many, many people from our area. And so even though they are out of our area, even though we're giving money out of our area, they're taking care of our residents, our folks, our friends, our family. And so that's why we find it so important to support them down there.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think it's a good point that you bring up as far as, being in a smaller area, smaller community, that sometimes it's not possible to always keep the funds local, but it is, being in the state of Wisconsin, you realize that everything funnels usually through Madison or Milwaukee, so it's good to know that, at least we have something that's fairly close to us to be able to assist with that, because, some people, if you got to travel across states or whatever the case is, and that's not always feasible either. So it's kind of like you guys serve as the local liaison almost to facilitate some of these journeys, I guess, for a lot of these, whether you're a donor or you're in need of a donation, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And in return, they refer people to us when people have, UW will say, hey, we've got these people that, might need some more information or some resources or some local people that they can talk to. And, we have a little bit of everybody on our committee. Our committee has changed a little bit over the years. People have come, people have gone, but our core committee is still the same. And we really represent all facets of organ donation. We really have we have living donors, we have recipients, we have family members of deceased donors, those who've either donated organs or tissue and or both. And then we have just people who just have a vested interest because they find it to be a great cause and something that they're really interested in. And so we kind of have a little bit of a great mix, I think. And so if we do have people asking for resources, I can say, that's not my, I'm a living donor and I know a lot about this, but it's not something I can come from personally. So, let me get you in touch with so-and-so on our committee who might be able to talk to you a little bit more. So try to support the community in that way as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And part of the reason that we wanted to have this interview, but just to bring more light to your organization was, as a credit union who is centered on healthcare employees, anything that's related to healthcare right now is of pertinence. And so just being able to shed some more light on the fact that this organization exists, because I'll be frank and say that up until probably 6 weeks ago, I had never heard of anything about it.
Absolutely.
Probably from a good place in the sense that I've never had a need, or no one in my family has had a need, but just the ability to shed some light onto your organization, all the great things that you guys are doing, and to be able to be that local resource, as we mentioned, because I'm sure that there are people in central Wisconsin who are either just found out that they're going to need an organ, or they have a family member, or they have a situation on the flip side where, maybe they have a situation where someone is going to be in a position to give organs, or whatever the case is. And it's hard to say, okay, well, that's a lot to take on and try to figure out on your own. So it's great, and I'm glad that we're able to shed some light onto this organization, because you guys are doing such great things.
Yeah, we appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And even throughout the state, I just had somebody last week that contacted me and said, hey, I'm not in your area. I'm in Burlington, Wisconsin, but my husband's going to need a kidney, and I'm just wondering, can you give us any resources? We don't know where to start. How can you help us? So we can at least give resources from our angle, and then hopefully connect them with somebody a little bit more local to them. But there aren't a lot of organizations in the state that that do what we do, and so we try to be as good about going outside of our area if we can. But of course, we've got a lot to take care of here in our area as well.
I get that.
But it's it really has been. We have met. The people I have met on this journey have been amazing, and everybody in their own right is doing something, and it's just, I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to begin to list the number of people and the support that our organization has received in this area and in the surrounding areas from all of the areas around. I get random messages that say, hey, we heard about you, we want to support you. It's like, that's awesome. Wonderful. Another thing that we actually did here in this community, that's actually the only one of its kind in the state, is we actually have what's called a legacy garden. And so down by the river in Wisconsin Rapids here on First Street, we have a garden there where people can purchase pavers, either in memory of somebody, in honor of somebody, just if they want to go ahead and have a tribute to a family member or a friend or somebody that helped them out along their journey. And we have 60, I think we're in the 60s now for pavers down there right now. We started that in September of 2021. And that was actually in memory of, September of 2020. That was actually in memory of Chris Stensberg. And he was one of our original committee members. Chris and his wife, Wanda's still on our committee. He was one of our original committee members, and he was a lung transplant. He was a lung recipient. And unfortunately, Chris passed away. But he was a girls basketball coach in Nakusa. And after his death, the Nakusa girls basketball team came to us and said, hey, we want to raise some money for you, and we want to do it in honor of Chris. But we don't know what to do or what would be best, and what could you use the money for. And so they did a basketball game in conjunction with the Port Edwards girls basketball team. They did a basketball game, and they raised over $6,000 for us. So when we received that money, we said, well, what are we going to do with this? A lot of our money does go, like I said, back to UW and to the Restoring Hope Transplant House, but that felt a little bit more like we wanted to do something here locally in memory of Chris. And Chris was a guy who wanted no center of attention at all. He did not want to be the guy that was in. So he probably would have been real mad at us if we had named something after him.
Sure.
But we came up with the idea of this legacy garden where people could actually honor their loved ones in that garden and have a place where they could return to and really have that ability. And there's nothing like it in the state. I had no idea. I started searching it. There's a lot of different, say the Fireman's Memorial here in Wisconsin Rapids, or a lot of different things like that, but there was nothing like this for organ and tissue donors or recipients.
Sure.
And so when we started it, it was a really cool project because it was something completely different than anything that had been done. had a lot of support for that. And so when the snow melts, if you get a chance, head down there and check it out. We try to keep that going. Chris's wife, Wanda's been really the key leader to that project. The city of Wisconsin Rapids was fantastic. They essentially donated their land and said, go ahead and do it. And it's been a fun, just really a fun side to what we do, because it's kept something here locally.
Sure.
And I finally got Google Maps to put it on the map the other day, so it's there.
Awesome.
So people can find it and go down and check it out. So
That's
it's
really
in one of the
cool.
city parks.
Nice. Well, besides the scavenger hunt, which you didn't mention was the largest fundraiser that you guys run, and the pavers, how else could individuals support the Central Wisconsin Gift of Life?
Well, we always take donations, of course.
Sure.
We do have a website. It's centralwisconsingiftoflife.org, so it's pretty standard. Or you can actually Google search us. We do come up right away for Central Wisconsin Gift of Life. And right on there, we do have an ability to donate. You can donate to us via PayPal, or I do have an address on there where you can send a donation if you're interested. If you're interested in the scavenger hunt, and we get this before March 30th, you can sign up. The link to sign up is also on both our Facebook page and on our website. And our Facebook page is just Central Wisconsin Gift of Life. So all that information is out there. So we love support in that way. You know, obviously monetarily, we love support in that way. If anybody has a donation that they want to give us for the raffle for the scavenger hunt, we're absolutely willing to take that. And honestly, just to follow along with us. I mean, and to be a donor yourself, to sign up to be an organ and tissue donor. I mean, that's the most important thing, to register. Now, if you've registered through the DMV anytime in the last 10 years, you are on the online registry. But otherwise, you can certainly search online if you're here in Wisconsin for the Wisconsin Donor Registry online. You can look for it on our link. Donate Life Wisconsin link also has it in there. And you can go on, you can actually go on and just put your name and driver's license number in too, just to make sure that you are registered, because it is a legally binding registration now. And so it used to be, in fact, Trey, who I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, he was on the Donate Life Wisconsin committee when they went through the work to actually make sure that it is a legally binding registration, so that if you are registered after you pass away, if you're in the situation to be an organ or tissue donor, the decision's already been made for your family. So your family doesn't have to, in that time of grief, go through and make the decision. It's already been made. And so you can check and see just to make sure, you know, it might be on your driver's license, but make sure you're on the registry too. So, you know, that's probably the most important way to support our work, is to make sure you're an organ and tissue donor, so that if you do pass away and you know, you're in the position to donate, that you will. If you're interested in being a living donor of any kind, now I say of any kind because it used to be that you could just be a living kidney donor. Now they do take portions of living liver donors. Your liver will regenerate itself, and so that you can be a living liver donor as well. But if you're interested in any of that and have questions, you can message us either on our Facebook page or through our website as well. Always happy to talk to you and get you, connected in with the resources that you would require to consider that process. We also try to put on our Facebook page, we try to feature stories of people who might need a kidney, whether they're in our area or not. You know, sometimes people say, well, gosh, you know, you are Central Wisconsin Gift of Life, like let's look at just people here in town. But we've had people ask us outside of the area, and we have no problem doing that. We would love to be able to, it's easy enough on our Facebook page to do that. We'd love to be able to support anybody here in the state of Wisconsin and truly beyond.
Awesome.
So yeah, lots of ways to support.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great. Well, and I'm appreciative of the time, of course. So I want to say that the credit union is going to pledge a $1,000 donation to the
Oh my
Gift of
gosh,
Life,
thank you so much. That's incredible.
Yeah, we understand that great work that you guys are doing.
We are so grateful for that. Thank you, David.
Yeah, it's the least that we can do.
That's just that. Honestly, that's huge. We really truly do appreciate that very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
I do want to be respectful of your time, but I thought that we could end on a high note. Is there one or two donor stories or any stories that were affiliated with the Central Wisconsin Gift of Life that really stand out to you as like, you know, if it wasn't for our organization being here, maybe this one to happen or whatever the case of. I don't know if you have one that you'd like to share with the group.
I do have one actually, and she just donated
Okay.
On the 15th of March.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, very recent.
So yes, she's going to actually hopefully be feeling well enough to speak at our scavenger hunt.
Oh,
She's
awesome.
hoping to be well enough to do the scavenger hunt, we'll maybe give her a little pass on not having to do all of the things.
Sure.
But
Well, that's
her,
nice of you.
Her name is Rhonda, and she's from right here in Wisconsin Rapids, and she tells us that if it was not for us, she probably would have never been a donor. She's what's called a non-directed donor, which is people who donate and have no idea who the recipient is. So they used to call it an altruistic donor, which is really what it is. I mean, these are people who are donating who don't have any idea who they're donating to and may never find out. They may find out, they may not. Their recipient and then the donor also have to decide if they, want to go ahead and find out about each other, and some choose to and some don't. But yeah, Rhonda just donated on the 15th, and she's doing very well.
Awesome.
Yes, and so I think she stands out right now as my biggest one, only because she specifically said, if it was not for you guys, I probably wouldn't have known to even do this. So, but shout out to Rhonda, because
Absolutely.
I'm so proud of her, because of the fact that she stepped up and did this and was really kind of out of the blue for us. So it makes it makes every bit, sometimes in the weeks leading up to the scavenger hunt, my husband will tell you it gets a little stressful.
I imagine.
So sometimes I feel like it gets a little stressful, but the day of the hunt, I almost feel like I'm walking on cloud 9 all day long, and I go home exhausted. But I got to tell you, it's amazing to see everybody come together for our cause and for the cause for which we support, and to get somebody like Rhonda who came back and said, because of my participation in this event, I gave life to somebody, is one of the greatest accolades we can get. The money's great. We've raised over $120,000 over the years. The money's great. But the fact that somebody out there got a phone call that said, you're going to receive a kidney because somebody was willing to give it up, I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we do what we do.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Well, I would encourage all of our listeners to learn more about the organization, learn more about just organ and tissue donations in general. Again, Central Wisconsin Gift of Life is the website, or Google it, as you mentioned. Get out there, learn more about this initiative. And if you're in that 1/3 that's not registered with the state of Wisconsin through the DMV, make sure that you change that here over the next couple of weeks. So.
Yes, please do.
So thank you for your time. It's so much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you
the
so much,
information
David.
has been great, and we really appreciated having this conversation today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.